Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, Major here.
Yes, good morning, Mitch. How you doing?
Well, if I measure the morning by the amount of advertisements you have there, I think all this
Well,
is more
boy,
good.
you gotta keep
good.
trying. You gotta keep swinging.
There's
I
also,
used to work. I used to work for Vin Shaw, Vin Moore.
boy, you're a historian. You're a historian. No longer come to my notes these days. Hey, thanks for the opportunity to be on your wonderful program.
Thank you, thank you.
That is growing, and it
You're
is a good
welcome. You're
job.
most welcome.
Khalil, this morning I call as a representative of people, namely as a member for Central Kingstown, and to recognize the wonderful privilege those people have given me to be there and supported them for the last so many years. You notice I'm making a distinction between being a representative for Central Kingstown Member of Parliament and as Vice President of the New Democratic Party. Because in the latter case, I know the Democratic Party will be making their own statements not long from now. And I think the statements, policy positions that they would outline would be ones that the vast majority of instances would be pleased with. It would be a very informative decision. But I think I have to allow the party to give it the sport to dry and the leader to speak. But in my case, as a representative for Central Kingstown, time is a bit of the essence. You know, in these COVID times that we're living, Carlisle, lots have been happening. A hell of a lot has been happening. And while it is challenging, as I think MP Rich Bramble made the point, it is also an occasion which you can seize opportunities that have presented themselves. I myself have been listening and listening deeply and intently the last several weeks. As you know, I'm often a lead spokesperson on many things. I do a weekly radio program. That's something one has to listen. I ask patience with you to make this point that I have made before on a radio program. That's very many years ago when I was a business student trying to get into the WFM radio station down at
Camp Park.
Totally over there. There's this very sharp bend in which you have to turn to get into the station.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I couldn't get in because I think somebody was parked at the entrance at which I wanted to get in. And both of us were stuck there. He wouldn't move and I wouldn't move. Until he signaled me to come. And eventually when I went, I realized if I swung wide enough, I could make it. And I learned from that experience that sometimes you have to give up your vantage point from which you're looking at a problem and accept the vantage point of somebody else who sees the same problem, but from a different vantage point. And that is to say, Carlisle, we can't be too long in politics, too long in business, too long in life to recognize the importance of listening and to take advantage of other people's vantage point. That's a kind of circuitous argument, but valid nonetheless. The Prime Minister of this country says that he will take calls from me and he would listen to me. So I'll speak, and I trust that he would listen to me next Wednesday when I speak in my capacity as a Vice President of the New Democratic Party. But to go back to where I started this morning, I highlighted the fact that I'm a representative of people, and I am a representative of Central Kingstown. Yesterday I saw, not for the first time, but in a reinforced manner, people who I represent out in protest. And I saw that at the Customs Department, and I saw there people for whom I have the greatest of respect. I will not take liberty to call their names. And I saw and recognized that at other places in which people were in protest in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As a representative of people, I can't stand askance or indifferent to the sufferings for people who have asked me to be representative of their views, even though I'm obliged to look at them and to weigh them and to make decisions. St. Vincent is at a stage now where we have never been before. In fact, I believe all Vincentians are experiencing a situation, or especially the older ones in society, that we have never been in their living history. It has surpassed any storm, any hurricane, any dengue, any volcano, in terms of the challenges that it has presented itself. And one has to make very careful decisions. Let me say this, Carlisle. The state should never find itself to be at war with its citizens. Never. And we must go all out to guard us in such circumstances. It is important at this time in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines that the state does not unleash its might on its citizens and on its people, and to deny people who have been otherwise very patriotic, dedicated, committed, gone the extra mile, and work in disadvantaged situations to support the state, and for the state to turn its machinery around on those people. It would not be easy for people who have given 20 years, 30 years, 15 years, whatever the numbers, especially those who have got up to the 33 and the 3rd years, full service, to go home without severance, without pension, without any form of recompense. Because even those who go home with those things find that it's an extremely difficult thing in life to adjust when they no longer have a paycheck at the end of every month. Much more to not to have that. And so we have to look at their situations in a different way. I'm advancing, Carlisle, that we have to separate our positions on whether we all are vaccinated, vaccine hesitant, anti-vaccine, or any form of vaccine, from the right of a person to have a job and to keep a job. And we have to weigh that very, very long and hard. And we can see the evidence of it the world over, taking place in the United States, in the Caribbean, Trinidad is reversing its emergency position, St. Lucia is relaxing and reversing theirs, Jamaica is reversing theirs, Antigua is doing the same. Even for one who has been vaccinated, and you listen to the news on television, you will see that we've gone from 1 dose to 2 doses and a 3rd dose, and now they're saying you may even need a 4th dose. And the argument is being made that even people who have been vaccinated are in fact being affected. I'm not making an anti-vaccination argument, but simply to say in the long run, we can't know for certain, even though we can take action. And who knows whether any of us, one side or the other, may be wrong or right on this position. Whatever those scientific vaccine, anti-vaccine arguments pretend to hold, to lose one's job and paycheck is too great a price for holding a position, whether it's of a personal nature, religious nature, moral nature, just internal fear, just an absence of conviction. One has to be very, very careful. And very often you discover, if you have lived long enough, that time is a healer. And time is also a remedy. Time is a solution. And we should let it work. So, if any of my people, Central Kingston, are in distress, or in fear of losing their job, because of a moral or personal stand that they have to take, I'm not only obliged to listen to them, but to represent them and represent them to the fullest, because that's what they've tasked me to do. And so I will have those conversations with those people, and I will deepen the conviction that I've come to, that they should not lose their work in the public service for having taken that stand. But I leave the full length of my argument for a proper position next Wednesday when I speak to the Prime Minister, if he would listen to me, if he doesn't change his mind, that on this matter, he needs to pull back. Pull back. And listen more deeply. And let them work for him, the people he represents, the Vincent the Grenadines. Ultimately, and always, as politicians, we are servants of the people. And it is their views that matters. This is not to disregard the fact that leaders must lead. Lead firmly, lead strongly, and lead wisely. But in any event, and on all occasions, we have to be mindful of the sacrifices that we're going to ask our people, our citizens, to pay for what we represent to be the interests of the state. Ultimately, the state is a collective of all of the several divergent voices of Vincentians. And I'm satisfied with my position on the ground that there's too large a percentage of Vincentians who are in disagreement with the public opinion at this time, and to be asked to pay a price for the moral suasion or conviction. We should not make in the public service any of those public servants lose their jobs. And more so, specific to my case, I will represent to the fullest those who are from Central Kingstown. I'll say more later. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, on a separate matter, Carlisle.
Yes, sir.
I have to, like all Vincentians, ask some certain questions at this time. On what grounds did the Commissioner of Police, albeit delayed, come to the conclusion that two persons in the society had a case to answer to, and that there must be 4 charges against those two persons? On what grounds the Deputy Director of Public the Director of Public Prosecutions satisfy herself that the file forwarded to her by the Commissioner of Police was of merit, and there were in fact sufficient evidence to go before a court of law to prosecute those people who had inflicted the wound on Cornelius Shaw.
Midge, it really bothered me. It really bothered me. It seems like sometimes we can get so politically caught up that we can forget that this is a crime against the state.
Yeah, and that's the point, Carl.
This is a crime against the state.
And the state, to the extent that it was satisfied that there was a case to be answered, must appeal that judgment by the magistrate.
Yes,
because you cannot look at the Vincentian populace in his eyes and represent to us either A, this thing didn't happen, it's total imagination, and that Vincentians could be satisfied. So in this situation in which we're going to have more injustice and a more jobless situation in Vincent.
I see, and it couldn't come at a worse time because here's where the state with regards to the COVID-19 vaccine is asking for the people's trust. Is asking for the people's trust, and look at what is happening there with and you
could understand why people therefore have to say the law is an arse. Yeah,
well, the law is not just the justice is supposed to be blind, but not necessarily deaf and dumb.
This is more than blind. This is eyes of wood.
Yes.
And I don't see any Vincentian on either side of the political equation, Labour, ULP, or Independent, who could accept that justice was well served.
Exactly. And we wonder what the children are learning.
And what are they learning?
We wonder what the children are learning. Looking at
those two issues, we must take a stand.
Yes.
We must take a stand in Mr. Benedict. I thank you for your time and patience as I go off to a funeral for one of my elder statespersons passed in my constituency. Thank you. Have an enjoyable day.
Take care.
And you'll hear more from the Major
All right,
in representation of the people of Central Kingston. Thank you very much.
All right, take care, Major.